Now, have you ever heard the phrase that leaders are readers? Now, this may sound a bit cliche, but if you really go deep into it. Now, the average non-fiction book is about 200 pages, and it takes the average person approximately 6 hours to read a decent 200-page book. Most times, these non-fiction books are actually written by authors who literally have 20 years of their lives distilled into basically 6 hours. So people who tend to read are downloading another person's 20 years in 6 hours. Now, if you have this question, how do I get to the same level with someone who is 20 years ahead of me by virtue of that person reading a lot of books more than me? Now, that's the whole point of this channel. And in this video, I'll be sharing with you ways on how you can read faster, and not just faster, but more effectively. Now let's get into the video. This skill of reading transcends just reading non-fiction books or fiction books. They actually can also quite literally help you in your studies as well. How do you read faster and effectively? Now, the first point in this video is pre-reading. Now, this is actually by far one of the most effective to read any book or any textbook faster than you currently are. Now, what is pre-reading? Now, this is basically running through that topic to see the subtopics, the highlighted text in that textbook, and figuring out the main points the author wants you to know in that topic. Because quite honestly, out of 100% of that material, only about 20% is actually quite important to you. Now, the next point is setting an intention before you read. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, this is basically before you actually think of opening that book, you need to ask yourself, why are you reading this in the first place? Is it for enjoyment? Is it to look for a singular fact? Or is it to study for an exam? Now, this is because when you first set your intention, it can literally protect you from a lot of distractions. Now, take for example, if the purpose of you reading a particular article or a particular book is for the sake of finding one singular vital piece of information, when you are clear on what you're looking for, when you see other seemingly interesting facts, it can literally stop you from jumping into a random rabbit hole that will actually get you nowhere and actually helps you to stay focused on the task at hand. Same thing with reading for an exam or even reading for just pleasure. There's a quote I heard from Miles Monroe: when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. Now, the next point is using a pacer. Bro, quite literally, this singular tool, I kid you not, it can quite literally double or quadruple your reading speed. Because naturally, when we read, our eyes do not actually read in a straight line. Your eyes quite literally, scientifically, it's been proven even, it actually bounces all around the place. It goes up and down like completely random movements called circadian movements. And when we actually read without a pacer, our eyes are basically all over the page. And that's when we get something like regressive reading. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you're reading a book and you are 30 minutes into the book and you haven't literally left a page in that book? Now, this can be explained by the fact that when you read, your eyes literally go back to what you have already read. This is the term known as regressive reading. When you read the same thing or the same words over and over again, and you find it difficult to progress to the next word. Now, when you use a pacer, it quite literally takes advantage of your hunter instinct. You are trying to follow a moving object. And back in prehistoric times, when men were actually trying to catch animals or rabbits, they better show as hell follow the movements of that animal. And that's what the pacer actually does. You are literally tricking your body or your eyes to follow the movements of a pen or your fingers even. While you're doing that, you are forcing your eyes to read in a straight line and avoid reading regression. Now, the next point is stop vocalization. Now, for those of you who don't know what sub-vocalization is, it's that voice in your head that plays when you are reading a text. I mean, while we're growing up, we're trained to read out loud while reading. And over time, we actually ingrain this habit to the point that when we are reading text, we quite literally say it in our minds. Now, the truth is that this is a barrier to actually really unlocking your potential to reading as fast as you possibly can, because you can see faster than you can speak. And when you are in the habit of sub-vocalizing, every single time you look at a word, you are basically limited by how quick you can speak. Now, the next tip is be prepared. Basically, when we are about to get into the mode of studying or the mode of reading anything, we need to prepare ourselves for what we are about to get into. This means getting your water close to you, getting your snacks if you're into snacks, and your reading material just an arm's length away so you are not tempted to affect that state of flow. Now, if you do not know what the flow state is, I actually went in detail on how you can actually unlock your flow state in one of my previous videos. But when you are in a state of flow, it's at that moment in time that time seems like it's frozen and your attention is at its maximum peak. And when you are at that state, any slight distraction can actually, mess the whole thing everything up. And that's why preparation is really important. The next tip is finding the right environment. Now, a study was done on a group of college students on the effects of the environment and their abilities to study. Now, the first group of students were basically kept in a room. They slept, they read there, they slept there, they watched movies, they basically did everything in their dorm rooms. And another group of students where the only thing they used their rooms for was only for sleeping and recreational activities, but all studying was done in the library or somewhere else apart from their rooms. Now, what was discovered was that the people who had a defined environment for studying actually tended to study more than those who really did not have a clear demarcation on where was a study environment and where was a reading environment. Your environment quite literally affects your mindset. It's so important that you are quite literally the product of your own environment. Now, I've quite literally given you all the tools and hacks that I currently use in my life, but there's one more thing that I feel is very important that you need to take note of. Now, for most things in life, there is a yin and a yang, and the yin to the yang of reading faster is your reading comprehension. Now, because in reading, we have two blocks, your speed and your comprehension. Now, in your bid to read faster, I'm going to give you a word of warning. While in your process to increase your speed, your reading comprehension might actually drop. Now, the rate at which your comprehension will drop depends on the rate at which you're pushing yourself, but that's where your intention comes into play, because the level of comprehension you would need on the material while studying for an exam is quite different from the level of comprehension that you would need while reading the second installment of, let's say, 50 Shades of Grey. You need to be clear on why you're reading in the first place to determine what level of comprehension is required for that reading material. So, my dear viewer and friend, I've laid out the tools before you. My question for you is, what are you going to do with it? The ball is in your court. And guys, if you like the video, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the algorithm. And if you love this video, I think you're gonna love the video about how you can maximize your productivity. And guys, as always, don't forget to always keep it real. Bye guys.
Hi guys, my name is Gulrez. I am his friend. Nice to see you guys. Please subscribe his channel for all motivational videos and all stuff, you know. Okay. For all life motivation, just subscribe my brother's YouTube channel. Okay, Animal?
Why are you still watching me? Click on the video.